Good evening, everybody. You're welcome to Clark's Bar here in Patrick Street in Mullingar for episode 12 of the Iarmhi TV podcast. Tonight we're going to be looking back on the weekend football quarterfinals, so we look forward to the Hurling semifinals coming up next weekend. But special guests drafted in, especially tonight, we're going to look forward to all the finals in the LGFA calendar coming up next weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So on my left, we have Jason Keelan and Jason from the Loaf of Bread podcast. And we have a special welcome for our first lady guest on the Iarmhi TV Club podcast, Karen Hegarty from Mullingar Shamrock. So you're both very welcome, lads.
Thanks for having us.
Jason, you're, I believe, the expert on all things LGFA. First of all, we'll just have a look back on what ended up in a disappointing year for the Westmeath Intermediate, the ladies football team, beaten after extra time in an All-Ireland semi-final. So near, but yet so far.
Yeah, it was great to get a bit of silverware in Leinster. I think that was a big aim for Frank and for the ladies as well, and that involved a couple of tough games. A massive one out in Ballinaccarrigy against Wexford, which went right down to the wire. We seem to have a huge history against them. I remember commentating against Wexford down in Wexford a couple of years ago when we found 2 goals in injury time and then lost a bitter one in extra time. But a big year for the girls, but that heartbreak against Tyrone I think will take a bit of coming back from, but hopefully next season there'll be a big push on and new faces in the team as well, I'm sure.
And Frank Browne, of course, Frank I know from his time involved with hurling in Longford, where I replaced him as the Longford senior hurling manager, and we used to do a slot on Shannonside Radio back in the olden days previewing hurling championships. I think they thought the two of us knew what we were talking about, but between myself and Frank we bluffed our way through it anyway. But he had a relatively good success this year, so he'll be hoping to go one step further and get back and get back up into the senior level.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. The girls seem to like him as well. It seems to be a good atmosphere, well, judging by the Instagram stories after and when they win, it certainly seems like a good atmosphere. But girls seem to respond very well to him. He's a great character. He's the most passionate man you'll ever meet on the sideline. He's unbelievable. But I think, a couple of new faces, I'd say, into that squad for a bit of competition more than anything will do them no harm. And hopefully next year, more silver on the board, and All-Ireland's not out of the possibilities, I would say.
Karen, coming over to you, no longer a member of that Westmeath senior football panel.
No, stepped away last year.
You had been there, you've done your time, as they say.
I did 15 seasons, so I think it was time to step over and let somebody else in, but I was on the road with them a lot, supporting them this year, so it's delighted to see them pick up the Leinster, and I suppose it's disappointing then to finish against Tyrone, but they did so well, so hopefully. And they stayed in Division 2 of the league, which was massive because it didn't go off to a great start. But then picking up the Leinster, and then they went on Tyrone so close. And I'm sure, chatting to the girls, they're so disappointed. But they'll all go back again next year and go at it. And hopefully, as you said there, just to add a few more faces to it, to add a bit of competition and push on then.
Yeah, I think I covered one of the games down in Athlone, one of the early games in the league against Donegal. I think it ended up in a draw, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was good stuff. And Donegal have been at the top table for a while as well. So Westmeath not too far off it either.
Oh, definitely not. They put up such a good fight in loads of the games, and getting over Wexford in those games was actually such a big thing for them, because we'd actually the previous year lost 3 times to Wexford. I'm sure that's disappointing for everyone. So it was nice to get that monkey off the back.
Anyway, we're going to look forward to the club finals now this weekend. Jason, I know you're going to be covering some of them for Iarmhi TV. Both the senior and intermediate are going to be televised live, so that's good to see anyway. But we'll start, maybe further down the line, and you can have a chat with us. Senior B final is fixed for Sunday in the Downs. On the fixture list, it's not giving us a time yet. So what can you tell us about Senior B? St Mary's, Rocherbridge and Kinnegad meeting in this final?
Yeah, an interesting one. Obviously with the change in the grading system with no relegation in senior as well for the second year in a row. This will be the last time there's no relegation, so it's interesting having a Senior B as well, and 2 strong teams in it. Kinnegad boasting the top scorer in Westmeath this year in Maeve Monaghan, who has proven to be a bit of a kind of quiet wild card in the background. A lot of people maybe didn't expect her now to be up there, but she is, I think, 10 points clear of Sarah Dillon as the top scorer, so there's a very, very strong chance she'll finish at the top. And then you have St Mary's Rochester Bridge, of course, who have Fiona in there, Westmeath captain as well. Endless amount of talented forwards, which they were going to need to stand up, because that Killucan team kind of caused a little bit of a ripple this year, particularly with some of the dual players, the likes of Hannah and Aaron, Cora in there, Queeve McCross as well, who's a fantastic footballer, Aoife O'Malley, like they had plenty in there, and then Shelley Doyle in the backs as well, another one who I know has been kind of touted lately as a fine player. So it's going to be an interesting one. I wouldn't know which way that one will go.
For anyone like myself who's not maybe up to scratch with the LGFA, are those senior B teams, those two teams, is that their first team that qualifies to that by what? By not qualifying for a county final, is or what way? Just explain what way they qualified for that final.
Yeah, well, the Bridge were involved in a fairly kind of it was a mixed season, I thought, for them at times, but got themselves to the knockouts. Fell a little bit short, and Killucan likewise, who were leading up until what I think 4 minutes from the end to their quarter final, and just sort of had a little bit of a collapse in about 7 minutes and conceded I think something like 8 points or something like that, and it just fell apart for them. So the kind of the nearlies, I suppose, have ended up in the Senior B final.
Senior B,
yeah,
right, fair enough. Well, now, as we said, that one is on the fixture list. We're not sure of a time on it yet. It is fixed for the Downs on Sunday. Junior B, Karen, is Junior B something similar? Is it for the teams that it's not like where we were used to in the men's game where it's kind of a second string or whatever? These are teams that are played in the junior championship but didn't get into the latter stages of the championship. Am I right in that as well?
Yeah, they didn't make the knockout stages, so they had a semi-final. Each team would have had a semi-final to play in the Junior B and then qualified for the final then. So it's Shandona and Lomond's second team.
Lomond's and Shandona's only first team, right.
Yeah.
That one is fixed for Kinnegad on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Who are you fancying in that one, lads? What's the form book like there?
Well, Shandona have won nothing in their 12 years as a club, so this would be a big thing for Jimmy Greville, who's the manager as well. And Jimmy will tell you he's a strong panel who are out training well. I think a panel of close to 30 as far as I know, and they have in their ranks Sandra McQuaid, who really is a county standard footballer playing in Junior B, which is a big thing. And then two key players at the back in Anna Gagan and Anya Hayden, cornerback and fullback. Probably the two most impressive, I would say, in the defence. And then I can't not mention Emma Fry using goals, because her mother, Aisling, who was the vice principal of Finian's, told me I have to mention her at the careers night the other night. But she is a fine keeper as well. They're two fine keepers actually. And then Lomond's, for a second team, like, they're ridiculously strong for a second team. Like, and Maeve O'Hara probably been the standout name among many others. It's a tough one to call. I would like to see, for Shandona's sake, I'd like to see them get a bit of silverware
and progress
for all their
as
efforts.
Well. Yeah. Junior Championship. This is the one now that caught my eye when I seen the fixture. Thurles Pass versus Milltown Pass. Two clubs on the old Dublin Galway Road, only a couple of miles apart. Come on, Jason, fill us in. Who's the money going on in this one now?
A grudge match, I suppose.
Yeah, Thurles Pass 412, St Paul's Delvin 310 in semi-final, and Milltown Pass 310, Clonagales 3-4. So
yeah,
two good wins for both of these going into it anyway.
Yeah, but that game against St Paul's, Thurles Pass were 7 down with 9 minutes left and managed to turn it around. Obviously, a couple of standout names that Karen will know a lot more about in Chloe and Johanna. But they're a very, very strong team. They have the minor vice captain, Rachel Murphy, who was phenomenal. Although that trouncing that Westmeath gave Leitrim in the minor was a bit of a one-sided affair, but she was excellent that day. 5 wins from 5. They have the heartbreak of last year. They lost to Goldsmiths in the final last year, and it absolutely killed them. So they'll want revenge.
Are Thurles Pass then seen as a stronger team, Karen? What are Milltown Pass like? Like, I mean, Johanna Quinn Maher, whatever we know her well from her time. She would have soldiered with you and with Westmeath, and Chloe Kelly, of course. So I mean, they're two hugely experienced players playing at junior level as well.
Two very experienced players. They're really strong girls, and they will obviously, like, after losing last year's final, will be going in to win it. But a couple of the Milltown Pass girls as well are so strong, and they've actually been tipping away nicely, and their win against Clongales now would be a big one. Because I know that like the game against Clongales and Turles Pass, if you're looking back on, was really tight as well. So it should be a really interesting final. I think it'll be really close. Maybe the experience of Johanna and Chloe and the likes might pull Turles Pass through, but Milltown Pass have real strong players too, so I'd say it'll be a good game, really good final.
Milltown Pass also have two of the finest young dual players, I would say, in the county. Claire Gaffney been one of the best prospects I think Westmeath have at both camogie and football. And then you have Cueva Coogan in there and Sive Gorman as well. Like there's talent on both sides. It's a bit of a local grudge match, I would say. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, the two juniors, Junior 1, Junior, what do we call it? Junior 1, Junior A, and Junior B. The Junior B is the first game in Kinnegad at 1 o'clock on the Sunday. St. Lomans versus Shandona, and then Junior proper, then Turles Pass versus Milltown Pass, 3 p.m. in Kinnegad. So a nice double header there for anyone, and I expect there will be a big crowd down there because they're two, Lomans, Shandona, not far apart either here around either side of the Mullingar, and then you have Turles Pass and Milltown Pass, with nothing else on for those two clubs this weekend. I expect there will be a big crowd down there in Kinnegad. Kinnegad, of course, always good to the LGFA. Anyway, have to mention that, providing pitches. Now, going back now to the two main competitions, both of them, nice to see both finals going into TG Cusack Park on the Saturday. The intermediate one, Loughnane Valley versus Goldsmith at 1:15, live on Iarmhi TV, followed by the senior final between St. Lomans and Milltown at 3:15, also on Iarmhi TV, and both, as I said, in TG Cusack Park. Jason, Loughnane Valley, Goldsmith. Tell me about the two clubs here now.
Yeah, Loughnane Valley lost in heartbreaking circumstance against Kinnegad in the final last year by a single point. I said after the junior final when Goldsmiths won, I said it'll be Goldsmiths Loughnane Valley in the intermediate next year. Goldsmiths just looked so good in the junior final. Kieran Seary was in charge at the time. Loughnane Valley will be definitely out for revenge. They have so much talent between the Ruan girls, Emily McCabe. The last day against Collery out in Milltown, Morgan Corcoran.
Just with that, Loughnane Valley 3-10, Collery 3-2, and the other semi-final, Goldsmith 4-7, Moat 10 points. Yeah,
Morgan Corcoran is one of the finest natural footballers you'll ever see. So gifted for Loughnane Valley, and then Niamh Malarkey, who's I think completely an unsung hero for Loughnane Valley as well. It's also a great battle of two fine goalkeepers as well, Amy English and Aisling Donlan. Probably two of the most impressive keepers this year. And then Goldsmiths will try and win at all costs. They are a solid team who will fight to the end. If they're losing with a few minutes left, you would be certain that they will fight right to the end. Sinead Seary, Karen of course will know Rebecca Higgins from the county as well, Charlie Seary, and then they have a goal scoring threat that kind of goes under the radar a little bit in Gemma Gwinan, who is a tough player to mark, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Loughnane Valley cope with the likes of her, but there are threats everywhere. And then Loughnane Valley's big thing is to get by Laura Madden, who is probably the most underrated six in Westmeath, I would say, at the moment.
Goldsmiths.
Yeah.
Where are they based, for anyone that's not following LGFA here in Westmeath?
Get a map of Westmeath and draw a massive circle. Anywhere from Tang, Turberclare, Maryland, all that direction of the county. They have huge numbers, and it's probably in some ways maybe kind of about time that they've started to push forward a little bit, because they've always had the potential, but now they've found kind of a bit of a system that works for them, and they've got the players to fill it. So yeah, big numbers in the club, but certainly plenty of potential. And I said it last year, I said they will potentially do a St. Joseph's and go up twice in a row from junior to senior. It's a 50-50 toss of the coin, so let Karen call it.
Karen, are both those teams capable of holding their own at senior level?
I actually think both would definitely be able to hold their own at senior level. We've actually played both teams in challenge matches over the years, and both are really strong, really solid teams. Like players all over the field who are really talented. You've the Ruans and Cueva Clark McMahon and a couple of players in Loughnane Valley who are so strong. And they have younger girls who are really good as well, who work so hard. Goldsmith girls, then I've kind of watched them develop as kind of the years went on. I helped with Shamrock's under 8s and 10s, and I've seen Goldsmiths like literally develop their team, and really good side. As you mentioned, Rebecca and Sinead would have both played with Westmeath for a year, and two really phenomenal footballers, and I'd hope to see them back in the Westmeath jersey soon. But I think it'll be a really interesting final. I think it'll be really tight, two really high scoring teams as well, which will be really entertaining for everyone at the game. I think both love attack, and like I said, they won't give up. They're both very dogged in their attack and in their defence, and both will be aiming to get into senior ranks this weekend, so hopefully be a good game.
It's interesting talking to both of you there, that there are county players coming from everywhere, from every level of the games in the LGFA, which is obviously a good thing. So there's obviously good work going on, with nuggets of players coming from even small clubs.
Oh yeah, and I think Frank Browne knows that as well, and so do his backroom team. There are players who, as you said, the likes of Sandra playing in Junior B, all the way up to the likes of Scott and all the girls, playing in the senior final. Like, they all have incredible amount of ability. So it's not just a case in Westmeath where they look at the senior ones. It's the same in Camogie as well, which is great. Like, if you have the potential, you will be given your shot at the county team, which is exactly what you want.
Right, the big one. 3:15 p.m. Saturday, the 4th of October, on live on Iarmhi TV. St. Lomans versus Milltown. This repeated last year's final?
Yeah.
Well, that was won by St. Lomans, am I right?
Yeah.
Well, go on, Jason. What do you think of this one now? Are you going to call this one, or right? I'm at home. I'm going to pay for the double header. Who am I going to look out for?
I suppose start with Milltown. I suppose they're the wounded animal coming in after having won so many in a row and having it stopped last year by, well, two incredible goals by Vicky Carr really were the base of it. But it was an absolute titanic game last year. Such a pleasure to be, on the commentary for as well. Milltown have a system that has worked for as long as I've been following ladies football, and probably as long as Karen has been playing as well, which is that defenders and shirt numbers and everything don't particularly matter. A cornerback in, like, say, Emma Ballasty could end up in the corner forward slot and is as comfortable up there as she would be in defence. Likewise, Gráinne Byrne, who is the best left-footed footballer I have ever seen in my life, at 11, will suddenly end up at 6, will turn over the ball and will set a move going. And then you've got Sarah Dillon, who is the second highest scorer in the county at the moment, and I always compare her and Ronan Wallace to each other. The two of them have that same run. It's off the shoulder. They'll pick up the ball. Wally and herself, a bit like David Clifford, the All-Ireland final, will touch the ball maybe 6 times in the game and will probably score 6 points. And she is just unbelievable. She's impossible to mark. And then, of course, you have Leanne Slevin, Tracy, you have Laura Kiernan. Like, there's so many players in that Milltown team. And then Lomans, who Karen, I'm sure, has also come up against plenty of times. They're just littered with talent as well.
Semi-finals, Milltown 2-13, the Downs 3 points. St. Lomans 3-11, St. Mary's Rocherbridge 6 points. It looks like we definitely have the two strongest teams in a final. Go on, Karen, talk to me about St. Lomans. You know plenty about them.
I know plenty about the two teams. Yeah, definitely. Definitely the two strongest teams. I would say, like, if you were to talk at the start of the year or even during the league and stuff, you would have picked out the two teams to come back and battle again for the final, similar to last year. Lomans have really built up their underage, and that's probably what's paying off for them now. Like, the likes of the Clonmurrays coming through, and Lara McCartan, they're so strong, like, all over the field. Like, I know that Milltown obviously have their game plan, but Lomans have such a fitness that they'll just keep running at you all the time. Then they've, like, Ciara Blundell, they have Aileen Martin there that came on off the bench the last day and was really strong. They've Julie McLaughlin, who's just returning as well. Yeah. Like, they've really strong girls everywhere on the pitch. Lucy McCartan, it's great seeing back. Like, similar to Sarah Dillon, they've gone through a lot of injuries, and to see the two girls playing back at the top level is just, it's a joy to watch the two girls, like, the way they battle and the way they go at it. Two really natural footballers that are so good at scoring and setting things up. Like, I think it'll be so tight. The two teams have such talent. Like, Milltown have a few girls back this year, like Laura Kiernan's returning from a big injury actually as well, and Sinead Boyce is back. So it should be a really good final. I'm really looking forward to it. I think Kate Kilmurray, Caoimhe Kilmurray, really dominated midfield in the semi-finals, and I think it'll be like that battle in the midfield. Caoimhe and Vicky against Tracy and Leanne will be massive because that was kind of the big difference the last day in the two teams nearly, that the two girls were dominating, and to see that battle again will be good.
What was in it last year?
I can't remember offhand, but not a lot. No,
it was tight.
It went right down to the wire.
It was the same in the league final last year. It was a goal. Ciara Blundell scored the goal.
Yeah, that's right. Like you think Lomond's 1/3 of their starting 15 are Kilmurray's. Like, so you've got Ellen at wing back, Annie, Caoimhe, Katie, Evie, and then as I've been told by their mother that Lucy is the next to come through, who is apparently about to surpass them all. So,
very strong,
like the Kilmurrays obviously are the backbone. The one player I have to mention, and I picked her as my player of the match, and I wrote the semi-final piece for the topic. Sandra McGrath is completely ignored in how good she is. She wears 13, she plays 6 non-stop. She is so good at covering that base across, and against Milltown she's going to have to do that because she's going to have the likes of Grania Byrne coming up against her. But I think she plays such a vital part in this, along with the likes of Shannon Breslin. And then they've got like talent on the bench, like you said, Megan Ennis coming off the bench, Julie McLaughlin, who's named in the Junior B, junior team for Lomans, is a senior player. They've just got talent coming through, and then right back to like Jane McKenna in goals, who made a great save out in Ballincarrigy the last day as well. So I don't know. I think it's I think the intermediate and the senior are just going to be unbelievable games that are too close to call, I think. But
on the LGFA, you're still on. We won't say we still have your own rules as such. There's no 3 players back, nothing. So it's up and down the field, helter skelter on it. But it's getting more and more organised. The physicality is there in it now. I'm right in saying that it's it's been taken seriously now by Erin Cleary. Karen, you'll probably kill me for it. It's always been taken seriously now, but it's really taken more and more serious in every club now.
Definitely it is. Like a lot of the clubs are, I suppose, coming the one club model already. Yeah. So it definitely is taken, and the standard has gone up so much in Westmeath. And that's from underage all the way up, and I suppose that comes from a lot of people building it. Like Ted Cronin from Lomans, I suppose, for me would be a big. He's kind of building the whole underage in Westmeath. He's been involved, and I suppose he's delighted seeing now the likes of Lomans being in the final because his work is paying off. But yeah, definitely it's getting to a much higher standard, and hopefully we'll start seeing it at inter-county level as well.
Yeah, that's for sure, absolutely. And Frank Browne, I'm sure, will be in Westmeath this weekend. We'll put the pressure on him now to be up here, and even though he will have the option of buying it and watching it on Iarmhi from the comfort of his own home down in Mayo, is he?
Yeah, he's Mayo.
Yeah. But look, lads, great publicity for these finals. I'm sure there'll be a whopping crowd in there in TG Cusack Park for supporting those 4 teams. That's the intermediate final, Loughnane Valley versus Goldsmith at 1:15 on Saturday in TG Cusack Park, and then the senior final, eagerly anticipated, St. Lomans versus Milltown, 3:15 in TG Cusack Park. And you'll have the pleasure of listening to Jason do comedy. You doing on both of them, Jason?
Yeah,
on the both of them there, yeah. So it'll be a change from listening to my old voice anyway. So that'll be no harm freshening things up on Earv TV. Lads, thank you very much for joining us here on the podcast. Again, the appeal go out. If you can't get into TG Cusack Park on Saturday, tune in to Earv TV. If we've picked up any new viewers or anything tonight, give us an old subscribe. We're trying to push up the numbers and see how we get on it, and like us as well on it. Jason Keelan, Karen Hegarty, thank you very much for joining us here. We wish all teams the best luck in their finals from the Earv TV podcast, all coming up this weekend. We're now going to take a break, when we'll be back in about 10 minutes with the second part of our podcast, where we'll be looking back on the quarterfinals in the football this weekend, and also looking forward to the senior and relative semi-finals in the hurling coming up this weekend as well. So from the 2 lads and myself for now, we're going to take a break. Join us about 10 minutes. Good evening, and we're welcome back here to Clark's Bar for the second half of episode 12 of the Iarmhi TV Club podcast, where tonight we're going to look back on the football games that were played over the weekend, quarterfinals in both Junior 1, Junior 2, Intermediate and Senior. And we'll also be looking forward to next weekend's Hurling Championship semi-finals in Intermediate, Senior B and Senior. I'm joined again by Paul Ahearne on my left hand side. You're welcome, Paul, again, and by Pat O'Brien, a resident hurling pundit. And just for anyone that wants to know, when you were listening to the commentary from the Mullingar-Garry Castle game where I was on commentary, if you heard somebody roaring in the background, well, right beside me is the culprit who just almost jumped out through the roof of the stand when that goal was scored at the very end. But Paul, I think we have to give you a free pass on that one, because there was some finish to a game.
It certainly was, and you don't often get moments like that in sport, and definitely, strangely for me, emotion definitely got the better of me in that moment anyway, for sure.
We'll look back on the football matches first of all, and you started with the Junior 2 quarterfinals. Now I know a lot of us knew very little about these two teams, but my God, we had two cracking matches in this. And the first quarterfinal, St Paul's won 10, Colliery 11 points, 11 scores apiece, the one goal making the difference. But then after extra time in the second one, played on Sunday, Thirds Pass 3-20, Delvin 2-21. Now that
A great advocate for the new rules anyway, in Junior 2. So I don't know anything about it, but all I know is that Adam Ennis played for Delvin. He came home with a black eye anyway. After that, I can tell you how, but the forwards had a good day out anyway.
Yeah, certainly on both sides.
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
On both sides. Now, I think Tommy Ryan was very much to the fore for Thirds Pass in that one. But like again, he's a footballer that would have played plenty of experience of playing senior football. Like, but Delvin go over, and Paul's now are the sole really junior club left in this, because the semi-finals now are coming up, and I think it's semi-finals Tubberclare versus St Paul's and Garry Castle versus Thirds Pass. So 3 out of 4 left there. You know, our second string teams, Tubberclare and Garry Castle, topping the groups respectively. So look, it'll be an interesting competition. There's still plenty to play for in that. As I said, we know very little about the individual players, but Delvin certainly with a lot of their hurlers, and I know Seamus Ennis may not be overly happy that lads had to go through 80 minutes of football, but you look at, it's better to be playing than training on a Sunday morning anyway.
But still, it's a competition. It's probably the lower grade, but it's a pity that you say a sole club can't win it and come up, because that's all they have. Like, you know, whereas the other 3 teams you've mentioned there, you know, God only knows what kind of an outfit they'll have next year, you know, because fellas leave and maybe retire and whatever. But the sole club, like, and it's only St Paul's that's left, like Delvin were there, and you have Loughnane Valley there, you know, that's their All-Irelands, them games, you know. And if they can't come out with Junior 2 this year, well, it's a bit of a setback to them all, and they're there again struggling next year. And they know that some of these clubs will come down, and they like the Thirds Pass with Tom Ryan. I mean, a top class player, and he's there, like, you know, and he'll with no problem cutting it in Junior 2. Yeah. You know, and you can well imagine with the scoreline that there was, it was probably just a very loose, open game where lads go out nearly to have fun. Yeah. And forwards, if you have a lad with a good foot, he crucify you on a sunny day and that kind of a competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was talking to one of the Thirds Pass players there before I came in, and I think Dara Clinton was playing full forward, and I think he was launching 2-pointers for sport. Like, you know, and like credit 221, 320, great score in that.
Fabulous score. I mean, if it was in the senior match, we'd be thrilled with it.
We'd be still raving about it.
We'd get the crowds.
Yeah, from that point of view, and like I think probably, I won't say the surprise, but like Delvin are obviously trying to get back into the final after last year, and you know, certainly when I saw the result, I was a little bit surprised, not having seen any of them and having nothing to go on. But I would have fancied Delvin to get back to the final again. But I think, like we might have said last week, that kind of distraction of having the hurling semi-final coming up as well can sometimes just take the eye off one of them in one particular way, and you know, hurling been probably a little bit more predominant out there than football, you know, maybe fellas were just having an eye on themselves as well rather than going full-blooded.
When you get into the thick of it and you have a chance of winning a game, you know, the old competitive juices won't allow you. You're not going to, you know, kick one wide on purpose just to finish off a game. Like you're going to try and win it and keep progressing through it. But look, at credit to them. Paul's now they'll go forward to play Tuberclare. Tuberclare's main team, let's call it, their intermediate team, still in the championship. So, you know, Paul's maybe hoping that Tuberclare might lose a player. But both Garrycastle and Thirds Pass now finished with their main teams as such. So panels will be left as they are as such. And you know, maybe always liable to get an experienced player that didn't play earlier in the year might now come back towards the end. So you just don't know what you're going to be facing there from those two teams. But look, at a good championship. You know, 5 teams to get their level at it, and it'll be interesting to see how that fare out in the semi-final. The Junior 1 quarterfinals, with some crackers in this now, and maybe a couple of upsets in it as well. Mullingar Shamrocks 1-13, Bunbruston 1-8. St. Lomas Mullingar 2-18, Ballinaccarrigy 1-10. St. Joseph's 1-8, the Downs 8 points, and Ballinagore 3-24, Athlone 6 points. Now, I suppose the form went with the top 2 in say junior only clubs, which was St. Joseph's and Ballinagore. Like Ballinagore really racking up a score.
Yeah, well, they have been getting good scores all year, but I suppose Athlone probably would be the weakest in the group, and the other side would have been fourth.
They finished fourth,
you know. So Ballinagore were top on their side, so there was always going to look like a kind of a one-sided game. But if you go down to the next level, St. Joseph's just about Gahowa Town. Now, they did leave a lot of scores behind them, but the Downs would have been really up for this because the Downs are training with their senior team who are flying, and like they would have got very, very competitive training and maybe training matches among themselves. It'll stand to St. Joseph's going forward, a game like that, you know. So from that perspective, well, it's good that you have 2 sole teams going through, but on the other end of it, we've lost 2 sole teams. You know, 2 real staunch junior football teams of old, Bunbrusna and Ball. And I'd say both of them are probably despondent this morning, but like the Lomans and Mullingar have huge picks. But at the same time, the team that they were putting out, there was already 20, 21 or 2 fellas gone that they couldn't pick from. You know, you have to look at it 2 sides. You know, I know Bun is a small area and whatever, and Ball is not that far away from it, and they're picking from a small group or whatever. But they're playing a team that has been decimated by another team. So you're talking about 22, 23 up.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to look at.
And Lomans in particular used a lot of new players this year in the senior championship. Lads have probably graduated from that junior team last year, like so they would have been that little bit weaker. But a big win for them. Paul, I think we might be right in saying, did you get the 4D semi-finals correct on your predictions last week?
I think so now. I rang Eddie Casey first thing this morning to make sure that he knew about it.
And hence why we didn't bring Eddie back again. You're the man on the junior football.
But I mean, like just kind of one of the things Pat said there is like, you know, definitely, you know, Ballinagore and Joseph's were the top in their side. Coming out of it, but also Shamrocks and Lomans were the top on their side. So like really the 4 strongest teams on the championship so far are there in the semi-final and they're there on merit. You know, and it kind of throws up one. I think I could be wrong on this, but I think Shamrocks played Joseph's in the semi-final last year, and they're teed up to play them again. And it was either a real tight affair or it went to extra time.
It did actually go to extra time.
And you know, that'll be a cracker. And Ballinagore, like, you know, they've bounced up from Junior 2, and the momentum is going really, really well for them. And you know, they're in the crest of a wave, and they're probably, you know, the form team in that championship, you know, as it stands at the moment.
But the only disadvantage Ballinagore will have in this game is they're playing a team that they know nothing about. You know, if they were playing Ball or Bun, they'd know them inside out because they'd know from the last year or 2. So that they actually they're going into the dark slightly. Maybe they looked at it yesterday, obviously. But apart from that, you know, it's just hard to read it. It's hard to know. Like Lomans, they'll have experience and youth. And if you think Lomans were in extremely hard luck with not winning that junior 2 years ago against Kilbeggan.
Right.
You know,
The very last minute of it.
Last kick of the ball. They lost the final. And like, they have plenty of talent, but Ballygore have been playing well, and I suppose from a purist, you would like to see the two sole junior teams getting to the final.
Yeah.
But it's there to be won. Whoever plays on the day or turns up on the day.
And Josephs have a point to prove after, last year
Yeah.
as well. Even though, they had a tough game, but that's actually, in a quarter final, get a really tough game, get
I
through
think
it.
that would stand
It
for
really
them,
stand to you,
you know.
bring you on. You'd know where you're strong, you'd know where you're weak. You'd learn a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, as you said, Paul, Mullingar Shamrocks versus Josephs and Lomans versus Ballygore going into the two semi-finals. We have all kinds of permutation. We could have two second strings in the junior final. We could have the two sole junior teams in it. They'll be hugely exciting games. And it's only in the last couple of years, I think some of these semi-finals, I think was it Lomans and Josephs another year, I think maybe went to penalties as well later on in the years. There'll be nothing in it, and they're dog eat dog down there, and there's a huge incentive to get back in. And why wouldn't it be some achievement, Pat? I know you're a Ballygore man, but wouldn't it be some achievement if they win Junior 2 and then win Junior 1 and go on the roll?
They're a very good outfit. They've great youth. They're young.
Right.
And I know Tommy McDaniels is brought back in this year, and he'd be the elder statesman, but no better man to find scores. But they work hard. Michael Ennis is a shrewd man. He has been, through the mill. He knows what it takes to get to the top, and he knows what it is to dog it out. He was one of the staunch Ballygore players back when they won junior, intermediate, won in Leinster. They had a huge run. So. They'll give it their best, and I'm sure they'll be thereabouts.
Yeah, those games, we haven't got fixtures yet, but obviously we'll be in a fortnight's time. But again, I think the fixtures won't be known until tomorrow, so we'll certainly look out for those two semi-finals, because there's two cracking matches in store there. Moving on to the intermediate quarter-finals. First one on Saturday, Milltown 3-13, Castledaly 13, and Milltown Pass 4-15, Multi 2-15. Pat, you were involved, I know you do umpiring along with Niall Ward, so you were on the post, you got a good close-up look at Milltown. Were you impressed by them?
Milltown, I think, just done enough to win the match. That was very poor standard, in my view anyway. I mean, Milltown could have been out of sight at half-time. They missed 3 goal opportunities, and they got one that probably should have been saved. But Castledaly, who had no threat whatsoever in the first half. I mean, it was lethargic from around out in the middle of the field, easy, slow ball coming into the likes of Lorcan Dolan, who actually showed pretty well when it did come in. He was the only one who was chipping away. He scored 3 points early on. Then he had a misfortune of getting a free dead straight in front of the goals, and it went the wrong side. So these things happen, but Milltown, they'll give everybody a run for their money, as like they were in the county final last year. Felt unlucky not to win it. They go forward a lot. Number 2, Maguire is a devil. He's as fit as a fiddle. He's beside you 1 minute, and the next minute you look up, he's in the corner forward above the far end. And it's the same with, there's a gunning lad, number 7, who's very, very good.
Yeah,
he was the best player I thought on the game. He was a threat all through, and he was able to score.
Yeah, I think you did commentary on that.
I think Matt Gunning was his name.
Yeah, I think it was 2-3 scored, if I remember correctly. And Pat's right. In the first half, Milltown could have been out of sight. I was kind of ticking the number of wides they had, and I kind of stopped once I got into double figures. It was 10 or 12, and they hit the post a couple of times, and there was a couple of goal opportunities. It was, they won't be happy with their return at all from that point of view. But in saying that, they were totally in control for most of the game. There was a 10-minute spell just after half time, and Castledaly came out in the second half, and suddenly it was, their energy went through the roof, their work rate went through the roof, and they had a chance for a goal with young Heaven, and the ball kind of came across the square, and he tried to connect with it, and he missed it, and that would have brought it back to a 2-point game. And Castledaly at that stage had all the momentum and all the play. It'd have been interesting to see what it turned out, but it went back up the field, and I think Milltown Wiley got a goal fairly shortly afterwards.
And almost a 6-point swing.
Yeah, it was a massive swing from that point of view. So, I think Milltown would have learned a lot from that game. They would have gone away going, it was a good win, we got through it. We didn't play as well as we should have. There's definitely 2 or 3 things that are work-ons for them. Midfield, they struggled a little bit. They're shooting obviously, but you know, they were definitely, you know, there was a gap there in terms of they were very, very comfortable.
Yeah, I think it showed maybe a little gap between Section A and Section B. Might be unfair to Castledaly, but that, you know, Milltown were comfortable. Now, the other quarter final, we had the opposite effect, because Milltown coming out of Section B 4-15, Multi 2-15. Now, again, it was an Iarmhi TV. Not sure whether any of you guys seen it or not, but Milltown passed impressive 4-15. You know, is a big score. You know, Kevin Burke and David Martin won't want to be bigging them up on that, but have to mention Brandon Kelly. I think he has something like 11 goals, and he's only played maybe 3.5 games or something like that. He was phenomenal. I think anyone watching the Iarmhi or the Westmeath GA, the Instagram account, where they've had the video up of his second goal, which was a class finish. Everything that's good about Brandon Kelly, pace, and he is a good finisher. So Milltown Pass now going forward, you know, they'll be dangerous.
Well, they're able to score. They're the highest scorers in all competition of all teams. Like they've been scoring freely, but just like they did concede heavily as well. If they need to tighten up just the back, you know, they need to get more, I suppose, man on man, whatever. But like have Sam Duncan in them is a huge threat. Brandon Kelly, and he seems to be really coming into form at the right time. He's a huge threat going forward. There will be an obstacle for anybody, but they definitely need to you can't be conceding. Like, it's all right scoring, like scoring 3 and say Our will only lay in 2, but someday you'll get caught out the wrong way. You know, you just have to get ruthless at the back, tight, manly, and just make sure we come out and give it the ball to the forwards that you know they can do damage at the other end.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, Pat. Like, you know, if you go back, like the thing that impressed me about Milltown Pass was they lost their last game. It was a real tight, dour affair. And that's where they struggled getting scores, and they were conceding, and they came out the wrong end of it. But they bounced back with a really good performance. Now, I think the other, you know, I think Brandon Kelly is a bit of an X factor for him. I think he missed the last 2 games. And, you know, he's back, a Milltown Pass score, and goes back up through the roof again. And I think the key when it comes to the semi-finals is how does he get shut down, or how do Milltown Pass free him up? But like Pat says, is getting an awful lot tighter at the back. Like 2-15 is, yeah, it's a bit much now to be conceding, really. Yeah,
and Multi, I think just on Multi, I think they would have been disappointed with their own performance. They were out of the game for long periods, but then, you know, they got a bit of a run on Milltown Pass maybe 10 minutes into the second half, and, you know, they pulled it back, I think maybe to 3 points, and then I think Milltown Pass just opened up again. Liam Riley went forward for the full back position. He scored a cracking goal as well for them. But I think overall Multi would have been disappointed with how they performed. Ronan Wallace was very quiet by his standards, kicked wide from ones that, you know, all year he's been getting. So, you know, Milltown Pass maybe, you know, nice win, go into a semi-final on a high, but I think for Multi they would have been disappointed how they performed on the day.
Yeah, well, I suppose they just about got through in 4th position, like in the whole competition. Like, they're relying an awful lot on Ronan, and maybe self-conscious. A lot of lads were saying, "Oh, Ronan will get the next ball, or he'll get his out here, or he'll come up with his magic again." But you know, you can't be. He's a gem to have on your team, but you have to help him. You have to be there to support him. You have to be there to take a little bit of pressure off him, because there is days that he just mightn't be able to perform, or the opposition is going to say, well, we stop Ronan and we have a huge chance of winning the game.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge for some teams, is you've got 1 or maybe 2 really outstanding players, and, you know, if they get shut down, can the rest of the boys stand up and carry? And, you know, particularly when it comes to forwards and scoring forwards, if you've got one forward who's giving you 1-4, 1-5 a game, and he gets shut down, that's 7 points. You need a lot of other fellas chipping in for you, and, you know, if you don't have that quality in your forward line, that's where it can become a real struggle.
Yeah, and probably that's one advantage that Milltown Pass have. There's the two Brennan brothers are inside in either corner, 13 and 15, and they're accurate as well. You know, Liam Gorman can score, even though he won't need me to remind him about what he missed yesterday evening as well. But they have goal scorers, and Finn Barkine. You know what I mean? The first point he scored, I think it was the first point of the game. He kicked it almost over the net from outside the 40-metre arc. Like, he's a leader for that team, and a huge man, and, you know, a spiritual leader in that dressing room, I know as well. So you know, they have plenty of talent. They have Milltown Pass. They know what it's like to get into this end of the championship as well. Being in finals, never just unlucky, never got over the final. But you know, it'll be a cracking semi-final, 2 cracking semi-finals: Tubberclare, Milltown Pass, and then Shandona and Milltown. So I mean, they're 2 mouth-watering prospects.
On paper, they look good, like, you know. So, you know, if they bring the right game, all the 4 teams, and have a cut at it, that's what the patrons want to pay their money for. They don't want to see anyone just holding the ball and this crisscrossing and backwards and sideways. Christ, kick the feckin' yoke in and see what happens.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
But I
think there's like the thing I didn't actually realise they were the matchups in the semi-final. But Milltown Pass and Tubberclare.
Yeah.
So I've seen like Milltown Pass have been scoring freely, as Pat said. Saw Tubberclare's last game where they absolutely ran riot in terms of scoring.
Yeah, well,
so on the one hand, I'd be hoping for like a scoreline like that Delvin Terrace Pass game, which probably means it's going to be a 9-8 or something like that in reality.
I'm not sure whether Matthew Whittaker is back or not.
He is, yeah.
He has been targeted for the semi-final to get him back, you know.
Yeah, he did play the last group game now, Pat.
Yeah.
I know that much.
Yeah. Well, he'd be easing it into it because we done the game with Milltown and Tubberclare, and Tubberclare looked to have full control of the game, but Milltown had that what you call rural dig, die hard attitude, and they dug out a win against Tubberclare.
Yeah.
You know, so Tubberclare, they're lovely fancy footballers, but they're going to have to dig deep now. They're in the level that they're in the trenches now when you get to a semi-final.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and look, we're all aware of the saying, semi-finals are for winning.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going. And we look forward to, we'll preview these games going forward as well. But you know, there's the other semi-final, and we will talk about this in a couple of weeks' time, with Shandon and Milltown, because they're going to come up against each other in the blue collar boxing as well. So we might get a preview there in a couple of weeks. But definitely 2 cracking semi-finals there in that intermediate championship, and you know, anyone could win that intermediate championship, and we know that. But look, there's only 4 at the minute now: Tubberclare, Milltown Pass, Shandona, and Milltown Ratconrad. So it's up to them now who wants it the most. Milltown beaten in last year's final. Shandona relegated from the senior ranks last year. Milltown Pass have been thereabouts, and Tubberclare will definitely fancy themselves, to go up to the senior. So lots to play for there. The 2 quarterfinals in the senior football this weekend. Mullingar Shamrocks 216, Garrycastle 117, and Coruscant Kinnegad 117, Colliery 15 points. We'll start with the one on Saturday evening. The one that was huge entertainment as it turned out, a massive finish to it, and Mullingar Shamrocks robbing it. I think, I won't say it's fair to say that they robbed it, because they were good throughout the game, but they got that score with the last kick of the match. I mean, it hadn't even time for the kick out to win it by 2 points, but it was a cracking game all around.
Well, probably the game of the season so far, like, in all fairness, like, you know. I mean, credit to Garrycastle, they came in from the week before where they previously lost, and they lost actually late in the game, below and Athlone against Tang. But look, it was nip and tuck all day, up and down. It was anyone's game. If you want to throw a little bit of controversy into it at the finish of the game, like, there was 4 minutes allocated. 4 minutes came up on the clock, and Garrycastle went up. Michael Monaghan put it over the bar. Most neutrals would have expected that's it. Blow the whistle. But lo and behold, the ball was caught in the middle of the field. A free was given. Wasn't a mark called as such, but a free was given, and the free was a kind of blocked or whatever.
Yeah, you would prevent it.
It prevented.
Yeah.
Now, my interpretation of that is that the referee brings the ball forward, and they get 50-metre advantage, and it's a free in. And to me, that would have been put over the bar.
Yeah.
But far for me to say whether that's my interpretation is right or wrong or whatever. But that didn't happen. He was told to hit it again, and as a result, the play unfolded, and we all know the result.
Yeah, it was a great finish.
Absolutely, the finish was
the last 10 minutes was fantastic. I'd kind of go the first 30 minutes wasn't great.
Was something like 9 points.
Yeah, it was very lethargic, very slow moving and whatever. Shamrocks came out to start the second half, great energy, you know, gave themselves a real platform, 4 points up, 5 minutes to go. Garrycastle, in fairness, swung over 2 amazing 2-pointers, draw the game up, and then we ended up with the finish that we had. At the time when you were talking about it, Pat, I thought it was a mark, and I thought he blocked the mark, and that was why it didn't go forward as a free, and that was why it didn't look to me like it was called like a free or whatever. But it was funny, like I was kind of afterwards, when I'd calmed down a little bit from all the excitement and so on, I was going, I saw the clock, I was directly in line with it, like, and your timings are spot on, Pat. If I was Garrycastle, I would have been fuming, because I was going, like, they should have been blown up twice, maybe 3 times.
And in fairness, I think there were a few.
And the goal went in 35 something. I don't know what the something was, but it was over 35 when the goal went in.
Now, I did end up talking to a referee yesterday, and I was going, and we were chatting about it. He wasn't at the game or whatever, and what he was saying to me was, it's 4 minutes minimum injury time.
Yeah.
And then I think within that 4 minutes, I think Ross Croom might have come up to take a free in that period of time, and there was time could be added on for the length of time it takes for those things to happen. So, look, I mean, if you come out the right side of it, like Shamrocks did, you wouldn't have any complaints. What do you call it? If you come out the wrong side of it, you'd be absolutely raging. But it was just one of those finishes to a game that doesn't happen very often, that you would go, wow, that was amazing. Like, now, I think Garrycastle have got caught like that once before. Might have been in a county final against Lomans. I think John Heslin might have either scored a goal or a penalty in dead time to win it, from that point of view. So, like, they've come out the wrong end of it once or twice, and that can be heartbreaking.
Garrycastle, like, even when the decision by the ref was to take it again, Garrycastle should have got their house in order, because they knew this was the last throw of the dice for Mullingar, and brought everybody. Well, I know they couldn't bring 3, but they should have been totally organised inside that we just don't foul and we try and win back the ball. But credit must go to Mullingar for engineering it. They moved it and moved it.
It was like basketball,
and
like
moved
some of the things at the end.
And
like, how did it end up where it was?
But look, there's times, Pat, like, I mean, we go back to last year's hurling for Loughlin Gales and Ahearne, and you know, when you bring a bunch of players back in, they can almost get in each other's way. Everybody's in marking space, no one marking a man. It was a high ball that came in, hit kind of a hopeful punt in, that broke a couple of times, and Brian Gearan seemed to pull it nearly from behind his ear to get it to his foot to get it into the back of the net. Like, you know, it was just one of those things, and it happens, you know,
I think
fans both and maybes.
I think the challenge, like, you know, and if you just look at it defensively, you know, in that moment, Garrycastle will be going, just don't give them a shot for a point, don't foul. And you kind of step off and step out a little bit, but there's space in behind, and the ball went over, and then it kind of broke through a few fellas. So with your Garrycastle defenders running back towards their own goals, not coming out to actually defend it, and you know, look, that's understandable.
But Brian Gearan was the man at the end of it, and he was, you know, he's the hero as far as Mullingar are concerned. Puts them into a semi-final now, where they'll go on now to play the Downs, you know, the favourites. But look, I think when Garrycastle look at their year, I think they will be, you know, content enough. Yes, they could have gone through another step, and it would have been a great year altogether for them then. But to come up from intermediate, right, go back another year, they got relegated to intermediate. They came back up straight away. Their aim then the next year is to get out of Section B and get into Section A. They've achieved that. They were within, you know, seconds of going into a semi-final. So I think that the job that you know, Gary and Doran Hart and the lads down there have done has been top class for them. And on the other hand, Micheál Burke has come into Mullingar Shamrocks, probably under a little bit of pressure, flopped a little bit, I think, fair to say, in the quarter final last year, and changed management, and he's come in there, and they're now in the semi-final with probably a shot to nothing, because they're going to come into a semi-final against Downs with absolutely no pressure on them.
No, absolutely not. Like, and like, I think on Garrycastle, first of all, like, you know, I mean, that's huge progress. Coming out of intermediate, topping your side, going to a quarter final, you know, arguably could be in a semi-final. great credit is due. It can be really, like, I'd say for them getting relegated was really, really, really tough, and to get back to where they are now, and they were in a league final as well. So it's not just a kind of a flash in the pan that they got a few good results in championship or anything like that. They've been consistently good throughout the year, and that's fantastic for them. And for Shamrocks, it's progress on last year. It's kind of building. Michael's brought in a few young lads, and he's given them their head. And you've some of the guys who were maybe coming through last year and the year before, like young Shane Ornsby. The second half, his fielding was outstanding.
It was a feature of the game.
It was a feature of the second half. The first half, not so much so. But those lads have really come in and have created a really different dynamic. And I think the challenge for any team playing Shamrocks now is, how do you get your kick out off? Because they're big around the middle, and they're not just one or two big, they're 4 or 5 big, and there's some excellent fielders of the ball that we saw. Like, there was some great catching in that game on Saturday as well.
And again, I mentioned him last day, and I'll give him an honourable mention again this week. Dara Daly, I think, put in a massive shift for them in the middle of the field as well, and then Shane Ornsby came in really and helped them in the end of it. But they have big men, they have a couple of injuries. They'll be hoping maybe to get Davy Gavin back. I don't know what way he is. They'll be hoping to get him back in. And Davy, knowing him, he'll die to get back in for a semi-final. And in his family situation as well, with his wife from the Downs as well, so he definitely wouldn't mind getting the bragging rights in the house for a while on that one. But he'll come back to it. The other semi-final then, or the other quarter-finals, yesterday, and Carson Kinnegad won 17, Colliery 15 points. Kinnegad scraped in. We mentioned it the last week, in the last couple of minutes to beat Athlone to qualify for it. But they looked a nice, accomplished outfit yesterday.
Yeah, I think, we kind of touched on it last week. I definitely felt there was phases of games, the Shamrocks game, the Athlone game, where Kinnegad looked really, really slick up front, and can they begin to put that together for 60 minutes? Now, I don't think they quite did it for 60 minutes, but they're building definitely through it. And, they started the championship 2 losses, came back with a win and had another loss, came back with a win, and now they've got another win. And they looked very, very kind of solid and professional yesterday, I would say, and looked very much in control of the game the whole way through.
Got their matchups right, Pat, I think it's fair to say, because Owen O'Brien was absolutely outstanding. He was picking up, one of Senan Baker.
One of the Bakers,
and took him out of the game, and he went forward actually and scored 2 crucial points at a time when they needed them, when it looked like Colliery were going to come right back into the game. And he was excellent, and definitely a mention for Josh Gahan. He was outstanding, a wing back for them. Had a chance of a goal. He's a little bit like the wing back for Milltown. Like, he was coming forward at every opportunity he got, and Kinnegad well worthy of their win.
Yeah, no, I think, when you look at the game on its merits, like, they just looked that shade better and comfortable in themselves from that point of view. I think they're probably just a bit more balanced across the field. They're different. The interesting thing about Kinnegad is different fellas are standing up in different games. And I think I've been at three of their games this year, and I'm kind of going back to the next game looking at, well, he was good last day, and then I'm seeing 2 or 3 other fellas actually stand out from that point of view. But Colliery, again, they didn't have such a great start in the championship, but they built into it, and they weren't a million miles away from it at the end, and there was a period where it looked like they could close that gap and push on, but Kinnegad were just a bit more organised and solid, and were able to kind of ride that little bit of a storm and get a bit of momentum. A couple of things
that interested me with Kinnegad. I think they used their 3rd different goalkeeper in the championship yesterday. Which you wonder about, but Jack obviously knows more than I do. We're not going to go down that road again. But Ger Leach I thought was outstanding yesterday in a new position at centre forward, and he was really a playmaker. And you know, I seen him with one ball where maybe on a different day he would have tried a hopeless shot for a point. Instead, he got his head up, he played it into a forward inside, and they took the point. Also with Kinnegad, what I liked about him yesterday, he picked his team a little bit differently in that he had Breen Cooney in middle of the field, and he was excellent in it. He pushed Darren Giles into wing forward, brought Gerald Leach out to centre forward, and it seemed to work for them. It seemed to be that little bit slicker with O'Brien and Josh Gavin bringing huge energy going forward as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like with the three guys you mentioned, like, and they're key players for Kinnegad. What Jack did was move them into positions where they can get on the ball and influence the game. And normally you might see young Leach and Darren Giles playing inside and Breen Cooney playing 11. And sometimes, you know, all three of them can struggle to get their hands on the ball in those positions. They're very dependent on other people bringing them into the game and whatever. And just giving them that bit of freedom and space and, like to your point, kind of doing intelligent things with the ball kind of served a good purpose in terms of getting the most out of them for the game.
Breen Cooney got the only goal of the game. It was a good finish in the first half as well. And it was one of those games where the goal just kept Kinnegad that little bit ahead all the time.
They're a real Jekyll and Hyde team, this Kinnegad. You just don't know what team is going to turn up. Like, I mean, they're in a semi-final with 3 losses.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of beggars belief to the ethos of the competition in one sense, but they're there.
Yeah.
And they're there to be bet, or they're going to go forward. But they are a Jekyll and Hyde. You just do not know which side is turning up.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I agree, and like what I mentioned earlier, Pat, about some of that attacking play, like the second half against Shamrocks, was like watching Barcelona in terms of how they were able to pick passes and get balls in spaces in between lines and stuff like that. I'd love to see them do more of it, because it was it was hard watch for me, but it was lovely to watch in terms of their ability to do it, and just kind of getting more of that, I think would serve them well.
You know, both these teams had to win last week to get into that position. You know, and I thought Corrie looked a little bit flat yesterday. You know, they put in a huge effort to get over Motor, local derby, whatever. You know, they celebrated it big time. You know, and I just thought yesterday they were a little bit flat.
Yeah, sometimes that can happen. Like and sometimes even in semi-finals, you know, one team comes out and just blows the other team away. You know, and I don't know whether it can be. Sometimes it can be the occasion, or sometimes it's just the effort to get there that you're almost going like, I haven't got anything left to give. No matter, I mean, you want to give it, but one or two things don't go your way, and then you kind of fall back into yourself. And I think getting a platform either early in the game or early in the second half, and having momentum at those two crucial periods can kind of set you up nicely. And Collery didn't have it at either of those 2 points.
No, but look, same as Gary Castle, their aim, I'm sure, at the start of the year was to get back up into Section A, and you know that has been achieved. They will be disappointed, but I think they will look at themselves, you know, probably a year or two behind Corus and Kinnegad with strength and conditioning work and conditioning work in general. They have plenty of young talent players there as well. Stephen Connolly was quiet yesterday, but he was absolutely outstanding the week before. You know, so you know, Tig and Sen and Baker, they'll want more from them, but they have the nucleus of a good side, and you know, probably a little bit disappointed they didn't take one more step in the championship. But you know, as far as Pat Flanagan and his men are concerned, we're in Section A next year. We'll have a cut at it and try and get into the top 4 of that one. But 2 semi-finals on that one. We look at them later on next week or the week after, whatever. The Downs against Mullingar Shamrocks, and Lomans against Corus and Kinnegad. And as I said, the 2 favourites, you know, the Downs and St. Lomans, and to me the other 2 teams going in, you know, with absolutely no pressure on them. We're in a lovely position. Everyone is looking forward already to a Downs Lomans final. So, you know, we know there's never a game was won on paper yet, or on a bookie shop either. No. But look at it's yes, Pat. You've called about Kinnegad are in the semi-final with 3 losses or whatever. But it has been a good championship so far, and I think certainly this weekend you could see the cut and thrust of knockout football and what it brings, you know, and the fear of going out of a championship completely. We'll finish with the football for now, and we look forward to hurling semi-finals this weekend.
You missed one match.
Oh, excuse me, I did too. My mistake, and thank you for reminding me. In the relegation game, actually, yes.
Probably the toughest, most painful game of the week.
Yeah, there's some
for somebody. And as it turned out, it was my own club. But it was a strange game. A game where two teams, I suppose, didn't want to be in the first place, but somebody has to come to play the last relegation game. And as it turned out, Malachy's would have beaten Tang in the very first round and came up short in the rest of the games. And Tang came up short all the way to the very last game. And they actually beat Garrycastle, who was probably not expected. But they did, and it was a late winner. But anyway, it got to the game itself. It was a doggish affair for a long time. It was 8 points to 5 at half time, and Tang were in control basically. But Malachy's fought hard coming down the stretch, levelled the game. But the real talking point of it was that Tang were down to 13 players at that stage, going into extra time. And in our day, and even up until maybe last year, you would always get to refill your hand, and you go back to 15 against 15. And nobody really knew the rule, but a few did know it, but the ones that knew it were outnumbered by the ones who didn't know it. And it was a confrontation went on in the middle of the pitch, and phone calls were made and whatever. But lo and behold, the rule has changed. You do not go back to 15 your full complement if you have a player sent off in normal time. You stay with whatever it was. So Tang started extra time with 13 players. Malachy's had their full complement of 15. And in that first 10-minute period, Malachy's took a grip of the game and scored a goal in 2 points, went 5 points up. And it looked that it was curtains for Tang, but they didn't read the script. And they fought hard, and they dug in, and they scored a goal and 2 points to bring it to the sudden death of these dreaded penalties. And I suppose in the first time in the history of Westmeath GA, a team got relegated on penalties. And as it turned out, Tang scored more than Malachy's.
I will just correct you on that one a small little bit, just a small bit, by saying it's the first time in football.
Football?
Because my own club, St. Bridget's, were relegated on a penalty shootout
against Plunkett's.
All right, in Hurling.
So, in Hurling.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the precinct was there.
Yeah. Now, Malachy's would look at...
You were obviously at the match.
Well, Malachy's would look at it in their own sense and say, well, now look at it, we had a huge advantage going into extra time with 2 extra players. But
20 minutes.
The only thing, like, Malachy's have been on the road, like, between hurling and football. It was the 11th week in a row for an awful lot of these fellas, like, and it does take its toll.
Yeah.
You know, tiredness creeps in, especially down the stretch.
Yeah.
And that's where Tang came
strong.
And you must think, well, Tang were fresher if 13 was able to outplay 15 at the finish.
Yeah.
You know, so it was heartbreak, as it turned out, for Malachy's. It was always going to be heartbreak for whoever went down, because both of them, like, when you get to a senior level, you'd like to stay there, you know, because you've worked so hard to get there.
Yeah.
You know, and we all know how difficult intermediate football is to get out of it.
Yeah. And if you don't do a Garrycastle and get back on the immediate bounce, you could be, you know, God knows how long in it, like, you know, and like that's the task that Shandona faced, because they went down this little bit, didn't go to penalties, but only by 1 point they were relegated last year, and it just proves how tight it is. But you know, like, in fairness to Malachy's and to Tang, like, how many lads would have practiced penalties?
Actually, that's the thing about it. Nobody does this. See, this is the most farcical thing about the sport, is nobody dreams of ending up in a penalty shootout. And nobody wants to hit them, and nobody wants to practice them. They do nothing. You might throw them in the garden, but they won't practice them in reality. And a bit of pressure then, you don't realise. Well, you have a fella that maybe was playing wing back and he was just catching ball and passing and we're clearing him. All of a sudden he's asked to kick a penalty that, if you score, we stay senior. If you miss, we're going down. And he's, oh God, what am I going to do here?
Yeah. So we see it in soccer, where there's professional players getting huge amounts of money,
I wouldn't
and they can't
have anything to say bad against anyone who misses a penalty, because it's not it's the most daunting thing
it's
to
not
have
something
to do.
you practice, and you know it's kind of, you know, it's becoming a lot more commonplace now, and like particularly when you get into knockout football, whether it's at the bottom or the top, you know, from that point of view, you know, having some thought about it and having some practice about it is...
Well, so we seen the county final last year.
Exactly.
I mean, and it was a sad way for a team to end up after such an entertaining year with nothing because it came down to penalties, which they probably never thought it would happen, that it happened.
Like the difference last year, Pat, was Lomans had 4 or 5 fellas who played soccer and took penalties regularly and knew what they were doing. And you know, and the Downs just didn't have that experience in terms of lads they were taking.
It's a lottery.
It's a lottery, and you know, like, we're not out to criticise the rules of the GA or rules of Westmeath GA or whatever, but you'd have to wonder is, you know, if you want a result on the day, is 5 more minutes of each half, you know, or sudden death, or can we find a more
the thing
favourable?
I think, Ray, to be really fair about it is, I can understand result on the day when it's a quarter-final or a semi-final or a replay of a final, because you've got a schedule and things start backing up. When it's a relegation match, there's no consequence. There's no it having any impact on the schedule. You can go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks out for it.
And I would argue that there's actually more at stake for those two teams yesterday than there will be for a county final.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like for the future of clubs and stuff like that.
Like, I mean, they've gone down a grade that they've never wanted to go back to. You know, everyone wants to try and get to the pinnacle of the code they're in. And the code is senior football. You know, if you're in the B section, you're after mentioning that Kinnegad and Colliery would be trying their best, or Colliery and Gary Castle would be happy to move up that level to the A next year. Like, you know, so to get relegated in anything is a setback to the club in general, not just to the team. You know, the whole ethos of the club. Like, you know, so look, you have to give credit to Tang. They dug in, they got the result.
They ground results out at the right time of the year, like 2 weeks in a row, and you know, and to come back in the second half, 13 men, you know, it's a fair achievement now, in fairness.
And save a year. And Pat, before we do leave relegation, we had a relegation game in Junior 1 as well, where I suppose, and it went according to what we would expect, where Kinnegad overcame Ballycamoyle and relegated Ballycamoyle back down to junior 2 for next year. So there'll be another sole junior club in that competition next year, and no more than intermediate level. It won't be that easy to get back out of it. So for the likes of Ballycamoyle, it's been a bad year for them to fail to field in one game. You know, fielded the last week. Well,
maybe in one sense it might be the best place to start to regroup, you know, because they have to regroup. They have to get their house in order, and, you know, they're at a level. And like, I've seen it with Ballynagore a few years ago, the same thing happened. They just knuckled down, they said, lads, there's no point crying about this is where we are. And they got organised, they came back and won a Junior 2 last year, and they started to build. And that they're,
and sometimes it can be a blessing almost, that, you know, you're kind of coasting along, and then suddenly that really kind of bad thing happens, and, you know, you kind of got to sit down and really reinvest in terms of your youth and your structures, and start rebuilding, and you know, it'll take a while, but it actually give you good foundations as you kind of build and build, that you're much more solid when you do get up. You're able to compete.
And that very much is the way Ballynagore have done.
Well, sure, they showed it can be done. Like, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, go down.
Obviously, there's no guarantee they're going to win a Junior 1, but they are
making progress.
They're making progress, and that's the important thing. I will turn the page now and look forward to football in a couple of weeks' time for semi-finals. But first of all, we have semi-finals in hurling coming up next weekend. Saturday has the 2 intermediate hurling semi-finals, St Bridget's versus Castowngagan and Kinnegad at 4 o'clock, and Turin and Southern Gales in Robinstown also on Saturday at 4 o'clock. First thing, you know, you wonder about the wisdom of putting the two of them on at the same time. You know, you're not going to get to see both, no matter how you manage, so you just wonder on that. Maybe with pitches and stuff like that, I'm sure there is a logical reason for it, but 3 sole intermediate teams and 1 second string in the semi-final is probably what we were looking for. Turin and Southern Gales, we'll look at it first. Turin have come through the group undefeated. Southern Gales into the semi-final in 4th place in the group. But that's going to be a tight match.
Absolutely. I mean, Turin, we said it all along, like, to have shown, I suppose, what they were waiting for, the younger lads to gel in with the older fellas this year. They have set the competition alight as regards their ability to move the ball and take their scores and whatever. But I can tell you, if they are not ready for a battle on Saturday, they will know by Saturday evening. Southern Gales have been knocking on the door. They haven't been beaten by much in the games they lost. They were unlucky in a few of them. Their best performance was the last day against Clonkill, even though we highlighted Clonkill's issues enough. But they have serious players. They're physically strong. You know, they want to get back to the county final again because they felt they let themselves down badly last year. You know, so it's unknown territory for Turin. It's their first time in a semi-final in a long, long time. You know, you can play all the round robin games you like. All you need to do is get to a semi-final. Both of them have done that. Turin have showed that, well, we are as good and maybe better than most, but they still have to go and do it again. You know, you still have to go and do it again. For Southern Gales, it didn't matter. They could afford to lose a game or two. They only lost them narrowly. They learned from them. They're building on it. And, you know, they will be a serious threat. If they bring what they're capable of bringing, there will be a serious threat. It'll be a good test now to see what happens. It's a pity, like you say, none of this is going to be on VTV. No one's going to see it, bar we rope in Ollie or Gerard or someone to go and do it privately or something, but that's the way it is. That's
it. But when they met in the group out in the Downs, there was only, I think, 4 points between the sides. So, you know, there was scores, easy scores both sides, probably fair to say, but, you know, there was still very little between them, and Southern Gales will be coming in now and they'll be boosted by a big score against Clonkill in the last round of matches.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly, like, I think the thing about Southern Gales, and kind of Pat's alluded, is they're incredibly hard to break down. They're incredibly dogged. They fight for every ball. They make life really, really difficult, and that's going to be a challenge as they kind of built for Turin, who have been pretty free scoring, playing really nice hurling, as Pat has said, and you know have kind of enjoyed freedom and space to be able to kind of rack up scores and so on and so forth. I expect it to be a way tighter game, and it's going to present a different challenge to Turin than they might have got off Southern Gales earlier in the championship, or off some of the other teams in the championship.
Southern Gales, two Pat down that end. Football finished, finished for Athlone in the last round of games. So, you know, they'll have, you know, a couple of weeks of a run in, you know, of concentrating solely on football. You know, you have the two Martins there would have been involved with Athlone. You know, the Dowds, they would have been involved with them. You know, Keelan McCarthy then would have finished up with Gary Castle this week, but you know, it just gives them a chance now, lads. Just focus on one game. There's no mind yourself for another code or anything like that. So
yeah, well, the last day it was 2-15 to 1-14. I remember we highlighted that, like, Turin got a goal, like, kind of
goal,
that kind of just kept them that little bit of breathing space. But Turin had put up huge scores. It was 2-14, 4-24. 2-18, 2-15, 1-18. They're good scoring. You know, like they have the ability. There's no doubting the skill level, you know, and you have a couple of, like, Sean Leach is playing exceptional hurling this year for them, like, you know, and he's on these guys, you know, they are, but they just need to have their focus right. You know, their hurling is there. It's just whether they're, you know, it's new territory for them. As I say, and where Southern Gales have been knocking on the door always in semi-finals and getting to finals and whatever, kind of there's that competition. They seem to be always in this intermediate, you know. But someday they're going to come and they're going to finish it. You know, and like Keane Geary, McCarthy, Dowds, they're all Martins. They're all seasoned guys, well able to hurl. They've got county experience. You know, they'll be a hard nut to crack.
Big men as well. You know, use the football.
And I think the key thing for Turin is how they respond to a different challenge. You know, if scores aren't coming as easy, if they're not kind of getting the big long range points and the ones over the shoulder that they've gotten in some of the games, and they don't have the opportunities to do that, and scores are just coming maybe a little bit slower than they have been, how do they respond and react to that? That'll be a challenge for them.
It'll be, again, promise to be a cracker. The other semi-final, myself and Pat will have to follow our restaurant St. Bridget's and Casttown Gagan. So we'll leave.
I'll stand back for this one. Just go on, lads.
Bridget's won the league game, but by the narrowest of margins, 1 point, and it could have gone either which way. Casttown would have lost a couple of players to senior since that, but have gained a couple of players back on the other hand. So, you know, this should be a tight one as well.
Yeah, well, I did say to you a week ago, I said the fact that Malachy's were in a relegation match is going to help you in one sense because, as I said, fatigue is an issue. Like, you know, these guys have been out on the road a lot between hurling football week in, week out. But look, it's a semi-final. It's there to be won. I've no doubt, no matter what way Castletown lads are feeling, they'll have a cut at it. I would think, like, Bridget's have got more belief all of a sudden than what was happening, say, in the earlier rounds. You know, they do have, I suppose, that little bit of breathing space with the bridge gone and Turles Pass gone. But Milltown Pass, you know, Finbar is a huge asset to both teams.
Yeah,
you know. Now, he's a footballer before he's probably a hurler, but at the same time, he's a huge pivotal position in this Bridges team. You know, the way it's panned out, it's there for Bridges, you know, because I met him a few times and he was despondent. He says, we're finished at the end of July. And now he's above making flags and bunting and all kinds of things, you know. So it's amazing the way things turn around. So the bottom line is, the best team win.
Fair enough, and we'll agree to. We won't follow. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks,
absolutely.
One way or the other.
Are you going to the game together, lads?
We'll meet up Sunday anyway.
We won't be going together anyway because I'm involved with Bridget, so I'll have to be there probably a little bit before him as well. So
I'm not great at timekeeper.
But he'll be there about 2 minutes before snaking in, though. Don't you worry. I know well he will. But that one is out in Kinnegad, so look, it'll be again. Little bit of a local rivalry there as well. Maybe it hasn't been to the fore in recent years, but you know it'll bring out a crowd from there. I'm quite sure anyway. So the minors have got through to us minor B final, so that's progress on one side for us. So it'd be nice if the other team can get through to a final as well. Even you take it one game at a time. And as I said earlier, semi-finals are all about winning.
Well, look, I can tell you here and now, if Castletown throw their lot at it and they come up short, they won't begrudge Bailey Sound their victory. I can tell you that.
Senior B semi-final and the Senior A semi-final, double header TG Park on Sunday, both of them live on Iarmhi TV. We'll start with the Senior B. Delvin and Ringtown, 2:15 TG Park on Sunday. Pat, Delvin losing, having been top of the table all the way through, losing their last group game and having to come back into a semi-final. Is it hard to sort of regroup and refocus for that? Ringtown, on the other hand, just maybe winning their last game to get into a semi-final. Is the impetus with Ringtown coming into this one?
I wouldn't really read into that too much at all, because at the end of the day, like it's kind of like the Turin scenario. If you're sitting there winning all your games, well, you could have this mentality, say, sure, we seem to be better than everyone else. But semi-finals are semi-finals. At the end of the day, you have to be in it. There's no point in saying anything different. Delvin will have learned more the last day, I suppose. Now, they only came up short against Oliver Plunkett, and it could have went either way. A few frees got away, a few scores. When they got it down to a point, they just couldn't get that equalising score to press on. And you would have felt that if they could, they might have. The weather this week is good, which will really suit Delvin. I said it all along, they're a lively top of the ground team, they're light, but they can move the ball swiftly if the weather is good. And at the moment it looks like good, pitches in good order and that. Ringtown are Ringtown. You just don't know exactly what you're going to get. But if they do turn up, they have the ability, like Mark Cunningham is a real talent. You have Emmett Corrigan playing well, Kilcoyne will chip in there, Flynn. They're a solid team enough. But I just don't think they have the same pace as Delvin. My reading into it. Now, the game that they did play before, it was a huge scoring game. But it was the thing about it was there was a very, very difficult evening below in Killucan. There was a huge, strong gale blowing and there was blustery showers. Delvin got off to a good start, actually, against the wind, as it turned out. But both of them conceded 4 goals, which they want to shore up. Delvin going forward look good, but they need to tighten up again at the back also. So it's making them an intriguing game.
Paul, you've probably seen both these sides because I know your own lad is involved with the Plunkett side. So Delvin, and Ringtown, Delvin and Plunkett's in the last group game was a cracking match. Delvin, disappointed, but Ringtown are a little bit like what Pat said about Southern Gales. They come into the knockout stage of this Senior B, and there is going to come a time when the door will open for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, they've been in finals before. Like, this is an uncharted territory for them, and they're well experienced at kind of getting through semi-finals into finals, or getting straight into finals, as the case may be. I think Pat's right. Like, up front, Delvin, I think just have that little bit more. Than Ringtown. Ringtown have some decent forwards like Mark Cunningham and Emma Corrigan particularly, like really have stood out in games. I think defensively they're both, particularly in when the ball gets inside 45, they're not organised enough, and that's where a lot of those goals are coming from, where both of them are getting opened up. I think it's whoever has learnt the most as they've gone through those games and really kind of gets much more solid. Like I was surprised at Delvin playing Dark midfield, to be honest with you.
I don't think that will be happening this week. No, I don't know anything. But
the last day, I can't imagine that happening again. I mean, I think he's, even though like Plunkett's the last day, they left him in an ocean of space on his own. And, that was kind of a bit of a deficiency and gave him opportunities. Like there was one good save and that denied him a second goal in the game. So, I think I couldn't call it now from what I've seen of either team. I think they both have the potential to go and win it. I'd fancy the Delvin forwards a little bit more though.
Yeah, well, I'd say Delvin in the first half had to take off 2 defenders against Oliver Plunkett's. They probably will have looked at that deeply and say, we need to structure this. Yeah. Also, without taking off anyone else, Davy Gavin ran riot inside in the full forward line. Yeah. So that's their issue. Their issue is not about scoring. They will score.
Yeah.
Their issue is sorting out the likes of Mark Cunningham, who has to be picked up. The likes of Emmett has to be sorted out. Yeah. They can't afford to be drifting off and leaving a yard or two, because...
And need to be tighter in their tackling as well, like, in terms of, they conceded a lot of frees in that Plunkett's game and 1 or 2 games before that. And like Emma Corrigan, I've seen him 2 or 3 times, he's absolutely on fire with frees.
Yeah, Matty Cunningham was in that Plunkett's game as well. He punished them. And at that level of hurling even, you'd almost be saying to your defenders, don't foul him. If he's good enough to score it on the run or from play, force him into doing that. Don't give him a cheap shot, because that Senior B level will be won with good free takers.
Well, I mean, there's always an abundance of frees, and you need to be nailing them. You have to have, as I always say, a 9 out of 10. You can't afford to have 2 or 3 slipping away. And we give huge credit to Dean all through the whole competition, but he would have been a little bit disappointed with his free taking the last day. The day was difficult enough.
Tricky enough,
and he's a young lad, but I did say if Dara was coming back that Seamus would leave him on them, because he has that ability. He plays with this free spirit, and I've no doubt his free taking won't be an issue whatsoever. The next day. But like Adam is at the back there, he's experienced enough, with the county there, and that command a real leadership role. And they'll need him to show complete leadership if they're going to get over the line. But I think Delvin have enough just about to get over the line here. But in saying that, Ringtown, they're a team. I seen them last year, and they blew I think it was the Wood in the semi-final. They just blew them away, and then they let themselves down again in the final, was it? It goes that way. They blow a little bit hot and cold, but if they get it right, they're going to be a hard nut to crack.
Yeah.
Because they're there or thereabouts for so long. It's just a matter of saying, well, this could be our year. Let's have a cut at it.
Yeah, and they'll go in with plenty of confidence in that, winning the last game to get into it. So, plenty to play for on that one as well. That one is live on Iarmhi TV, but it's in TG Park at 2:15 p.m. And the big game of the weekend, Hegarty versus Loughlane Gales, semi-final, 4 p.m, live on Iarmhi TV as well. But we've finally got down to the knockout stages of, we've had the shadow boxing, and these teams have played each other early in the group stage, whatever. But this time it's for real, because there's one team going home.
Yeah, that's what it is like, But even I wouldn't say it was shadow boxing through the league campaign, because you weren't really sure with it only 3 qualifying. You know, very easily you could slip into fourth. You
Yeah.
know, it just happened that I suppose things kind of were difficult for Clonkill, but they fought tooth and nail to try and, you know, justify not going down into fourth and to give Collinstown a fair rattle at, you know, at that close end of the competition. But look, at Collinstown have shown all through the season that they're a serious outfit. They have talented hurlers. They work extremely hard for one another. There's a great understanding among one another, and they have possibly one of the best goalkeepers in club hurling, I'd say, there is out there. Not just in Westmeath. You know, his accuracy from placing the puck outs is immaculate.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
and it's a big factor on the quick poke out.
absolutely. And sure, I mean, what they have also, they're good in the air. You know, Tommy's Doyle is very good at catching it. Owen Daly, you know, they're high. You know, they're well able to grab it. And then they have the old fox like Derek is there, and he's probably saying, "I'm like Pat Horgan. I want this medal."
Yeah.
You know, and he's there chasing it for years. And I suppose, in all honesty, nobody would begrudge him if he did get it. But it's a semi-final. Semi-finals have to be won. We said it before.
Yeah, that's all about. Ahearne, Paul, qualified for the semi-final. It's in one step further than what John did last year with the Ahearne missing out in the end of the groups for the knockout stages. Haven't really set the world on fire just yet, but I really think this is the time for them, because they'll know knockout game, last chance saloon here now. If we're going to produce now, this is the time to be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been unspectacular in terms of their performances so far, but like there was definitely, when they played Castletown there in the last game, there was a spark in them. There was a bit of bite and a bit of fight, and it looked like they were kind of building towards something. And they for stretches, there was a couple of, I won't say lucky goals, but unfortunate concessions of goals from Ahearne. They were matching stride for stride with Castletown through that last game, and certainly asked them a lot of questions the whole way through it. So I think, they know themselves. They wouldn't have been happy with how last year finished. They're in a semi-final. The opportunity to get into a final is there. They will want that. And I've no doubt they're going to come with a huge level of intensity and physicality, and no small amount of hurling as well. And, I think, there was a cracking game between them last year, I think it was, and I think we could be in line for something similar again this weekend.
Pat, Ahearne be hoping to get Robbie Gravel back, after a serious hand injury. I'm not sure what his status is, but if he can come back into that team, he'll give them that focus again. He'll slot in, I would expect, at centre back, which allows them to push Rory Keys forward and maybe just get the structure that they have been more used to playing with in the last while.
Yeah, by all accounts, Robbie will be playing on Sunday. Like, he has come back, he has played a bit of training. I think they had a practice match. But you need like the Robbie Gravel around. It means like also you'll be pushing up, but I think they may have more of an issue with Joey Boyle. Like, he has an injury there that kept him out the last day, and it's kept him out of work actually, and whatever. And it's not just going away. And now whether he's able to do some part or no part, I don't rightly know. But it'd mean that Owen Keys would be going back up where he normally would be associated with. But as I said the last day, Ahearne, I'd say, were consigned to the fact that they needed a real good performance against Castletown. They knew that more than likely they were still going to be in a semi-final. And they played, they didn't show their full hand, but they played everybody at some stage that they're going to be playing next weekend. It's just to know exactly what team they're going to start with. Because they did have lads on the line that day that definitely will start the next day, that are well capable of starting. But they're beginning to get a little bit more of a panel together, for the first 18 players or that, that they know that they can, it's not a major issue if we have to switch here or there. Their intensity the last week in Castletown was really, really up, and their physicality and all that. So Collinstown won't lack anything in that department either, zero. So you'll have two loggerheads going flat out, and let's hope that the hurling wins out at the end of the day, that it's not just an intensive muscle pushing, but it has the makings of a good game, and the competition needs a good semi-final.
Yeah.
You know, we do need it.
With only one semi-final in it, you don't have a.
You want something that's really get people talking and looking forward to a final. And I think look, there's quality hurlers on both teams.
Absolutely.
If you pick the best out of Ahearne and the best out of the Gaels, you put out a county team. That's the reality. So there's a lot of really good hurlers there. I think it'll be just interesting from a tactical point of view. Like you mentioned Joey Boyle, whether he play or not play, but Joey kind of brings a different dynamic to Ahearne when he plays, in terms of his energy and his free run and his ability to pick up spaces and so on. And if he's not playing, I think it kind of impacts Ahearne's game plan a little bit from that point of view. And like the Gaels have a nice mix between physicality and kind of low speed on the ground, and the likes of the two Williamses, who are really, really dynamic and well capable of getting scores from anywhere. So they have a nice balance between physicality or height and movement as well. So there's kind of, there's a bit of differences in terms of how both teams kind of play that'll kind of throw up some interesting battles, I think.
The Gaels won't have anything to fear going into this semi-final, right? Pat, they're a well-seasoned team, and we've given Joey Williams and his team great credit. Heartbreaking 2 finals in a row, and here they are now in the last 3 again. Having been out of it for a while, they've now, broken in and solidified themselves as in the top 3. And, they'll be hoping to make these 3 finals in a row. Obviously, they want to win one, but to win a final, they have to win a semi-final first.
Yeah, well, it's their 3rd semi-final in a row. So, I mean, at the end of the day, well, Ahearne might say, well, we owed them one from last year, the way they go over the line. But sure, only the year before that, the Gaels would say, well, we owed you one for the way you took the final out of our pocket the year before. So that's gone. It makes no difference. Look, they're too evenly matched. You'd be a brave man to throw a couple of €100 at either one or the other. You just presume both of them will turn up on the day.
Yeah.
Both of them will settle down after whatever kind of schmozzling goes on for 10 minutes, and both of them will hurl to the best of their ability, and then let's see who comes out. But they are 2 good hurling teams. Like we did say, the Williamses Shane and David are exceptional stick work. Tommy Doyle on his day in the county final 2 years ago against Ahearne, Tommy Doyle and Owen Daly scored 8 points from the half-hour line from play. Like, they were exceptional. The 2 Kennedys are coming good this year. They're really stepping up. At the back, they're solid enough. Don Higgins is there, the other Dailies are there, but the goalkeeper is just, he's magic.
Well, it's the variety of his puckouts as well, like short, long, on the move, quick, slowing it down. They have a lot of options in terms of their puckout, in terms of restarts.
Especially where, if the referee allows them, without the whistle, to get that, from a wide ball, to get the quick one out, he turns defence into attack very, very good. Like Ahearne want to be tuned in for the 60 minutes of it.
But then on Ahearne's side, their forwards are good. I mean, if Killian, if he turns, I know that, but you see, Killian's has his reputation there, and people are marking him tight, and whatever, and but young Ahearne is very lively in the corner, and on the far, like the 2 keys are Dibbles are catching the ball and going. Robert Coyne is a great hand in them also. David Hickey hurls well. They're tight. Mulherron is as strong as a bull. Sure, definitely. If it's anywhere around that area, you'll do well to go by him.
You could have a good battle there if Tommy Doyle ends up at full forward and on Mulherron's. There's some great matchups in this one.
There is. Like, if you look at it over the last couple of years, like both of these teams provided a lot of quality players down to the county. Look, at the end of the day, it has the makings of a good semi-final. Both of them will be egging to get to a final, because they have been there.
Big reasons to do it. The Gaels been knocking on the door, and this is another opportunity. And Ahearne kind of feel, after the previous year defending champions, let ourselves down a little bit last year. We need to be back where we want to be. So, there's no shortage of motivation to get there anyway.
Well, look, lads, hopefully we get the game we're hoping for, and it does set the championship up. And give us a good crack in semi-final. 4 games this weekend, all semi-finals. Ahearne, Loughlin, Gaels, obviously the pick of the bunch at 4 p.m. on Sunday in TG Cusick Park, live on Iarmhi TV. Delvin and Ringtown proceeded at 2:15, also live on Iarmhi TV. And the two intermediate semi-finals, St. Bridget's versus Castletown in Kinnegad on Saturday at 4 o'clock, and Turin and Southern Gales in Robinstown also on Saturday at 4 o'clock. So 4 big games. 4 teams are going to finish their hurling for the year one way or the other, so the rest of them will be looking forward to county finals coming up in the next couple of weeks. So the best of luck to all teams.
Just before we leave or wrap up or whatever, just on the underage, they're down to the same levels as well, semi-finals. There's minor hurling championship semi-finals this weekend on Saturday, and there'll be 2 very good games. Out in Castletown, you have Castletown and Oliver Plunkett's. And in Clonkill, you have Clonkill and Ahearne. And they're 4 very nice teams.
Right.
You know, very good games. They're at 12 o'clock in those 2 venues. On Saturday.
Right.
Yeah. And the under-16 A competition is down to the final. And it was probably the best competition all through, because there was 8 teams in Division 1. Divided them up, going by the league in A and B, and they played off, and the top 2 teams in A finished up were Clonkill and Ahearne. On the other side then coming through, on the other 2 underneath in the quarterfinals then were Napiercy and Clonegale. There'd be combinations.
You're right.
And on coming from the other side then was Castletown and Cullen. So Castletown went down to Castlepollard and played Clonegale, and it was a terrific match. It finished up, Clonegale won it by 3 points. I think it was 5-13 to 6-8. And Cullen went out to Collinstown and just came up short as well, and Collinstown scored 28 points. I think it was 28 to 3-19 or something. And the semi-finals were played yesterday. Clonegale went to Clonkill and Napiercy went to Ahearne and overturned both of them.
Oh.
So we have an under-16 Premier final on the 12th of October between Napiercy and Clonegale. And there's absolutely anyone that has interest in underage hurling should go to it, because there's some very, very good players, but there's 2 exceptional players, one on either side.
One is young Williams,
absolutely,
Conor Williams,
unbelievable,
and the other is the young Raleigh,
who won the All Ireland long puck. But that's not saying anything. There is fantastic players in both. They have backboned under 15s and under 16 county squads in this year, 2025. So they're 2 very, very good teams.
And you'll have a particular interest in that now as well. You're looking at your minors for next year as well. Yeah, I know you have.
But anyway, that's
all things underage anyway, Pat. But you'll have a particular.
But that's where we are in underage, you know, and it's good to see, you know, that there is good competition among them, and there's good competition among them last 4 minors also.
Yeah.
You know, so the Division 2 under 16 was won by Southern Gales. And the under-14 Division 1 Premier was won by Clonkill, who were way stronger than everyone else.
I believe,
Delvin were in the final, and great credit must go to Delvin, because not alone did they move up to play in Division 1, but they also put a team in Division 2.
At under 14.
At under 14, and credited themselves quite well. But Clonkill are an exceptional under 14 team. They're a team they can mark down going forward. Delvin did get a heavy trimming, but they will learn from it, and they'll benefit from playing in Division 1. You know, especially them lads. They might feel disheartened on the weekend of it, but they will look back on it and say, well, this is where we need to be playing at, and move forward. You know, so
close the gap as the ages go on.
No, and like you said, your own club is in the minor 2 final. I think it's Bridget's against a combination of Delvin and Cullen.
Yeah, that game was
in that. That's the 19th of October.
Yes.
The morning of the county senior final.
Right, so again, plenty to look forward to.
Look at these lads are all the future. These are the future.
And good to see new clubs starting to appear in finals as well.
Absolutely, sure.
And reflecting of the work that's going on at underage.
It's the first time we had 2, I'd say, combination teams at that higher level, age group.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So good to see, and Pat, thanks for highlighting it. And you always, down through the years, have always had a great interest in everything at underage, and you know, never give it up, because you know, we know the standards you drive, and you'll be a huge asset to the minor team going forward as well with the county team. Your knowledge and experience coming in there. But look, lads, I think we're going to finish up here for the evening. Again, as I said on the end of the first half of the podcast, subscribe or like us. The more we get, and the better the more you drink, the better we sound. It used to be an old saying.
Is Tommy Gallagher subscribing to us?
We hope
Is
so.
there money going
Yeah,
with clicks?
we
What
want
do you
money.
call
with
it?
clicks. We want money. Tom Browne needs the money. Malachy's are finished. He needs the money now. But anyway, all joking aside, lads, it just reflects well for us. So if you can either subscribe or give us a like wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank the lads for joining me as always, both football and hurling. Huge knowledge on both codes. Pat, even the new rules has converted him over to the big ball game. So thank you very much, Pat, for staying on and looking at the two codes with us. Paul, as always. And again, I will apologise for his roaring and shouting after the Mullingar game. I want to thank Clark's Bar here as well for looking after us, as always. Give the lads up there a plug. His staff look after us immaculately here, so thank you very much. I think we have plans going forward on the podcast, because we will be, in the lead up to all the county finals, we will not be doing, I think, enough for the game, but we're hoping that we'll incorporate something into our podcast by bringing in a live audience and bringing in live guests as well. So keep tuned for that. We'll have more information when we know who's making finals and what the story is going to be. But thank Gavin on the camera, Tom Browne on production. Week 12 is over, and we look forward to the unlucky number 13 next week. But for now, from Ray Gavin and myself, good luck for now.